Good evening and welcome to Responding to COVID-19 on TTT, Talk City 91.1 FM and TTT Live online on Facebook. I am Dike Rostant. Now, Rahm Emanuel, Winston Churchill and Saul Alinsky before them have spoken about not letting a serious crisis go to waste. Now, the Minister of Health has repeatedly said that more has happened in the last 4 months to change paradigms and ways of being, and it is a perfect opportunity to speak about innovation. So this and the next 2 Wednesdays, TTT's Response to COVID-19 will feature a 3-part miniseries with subject matter experts in the field of innovation. Today we start the ball rolling with the brainchild of this idea, Dr. Michael Fleary. He's the Program Director of Business and Development and Innovation at the Arthur Lockjack Global School of Business. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Fleary. Now I want to start off though with the question, if innovation is the answer, what is the question or the challenge?
The challenge is our inability thus far to effectively think critically and to solve the problems that we encounter on a day-to-day basis in Trinidad and Tobago. DK, thank you for having me and good afternoon to all the viewers.
What are some of those challenges that we encounter on a day-to-day basis?
Yes.
So can you give me a slight list of some things?
Well, it's nothing specific in ODK. It's about problem solving, and generally, I have a slide that I'm going to present to you shortly, which indicates that as a nation, we have been declining in innovation year on year. And this is because innovation is tagged or tied to our ability to think critically or think outside of our norms, the things that we do on a daily basis. Our subconscious is, in many regards, controlled by our socialization practices, for example. So what I would like to present today to the viewership is a methodology, if you will, that enables each individual, and you don't even have to have a business, but if it's applied to business, this approach to management thinking would allow you to think critically and innovate. But the average person, I encourage the average person to use this methodology and play with it, have fun with it. We need to not think of innovating as something serious that only a few can do. We need to think that innovation is something that we all can do. And it starts by thinking critically and having the ability to problem solve. Once we can do that in the first instance, then we will be able to apply that skill to things that could return a profit eventually, which is what we hope to achieve.
I'm very happy to be able to play devil's advocate because, Dr. Fleary, you are an educator. But many people say that schools are largely responsible for decreasing that level of or not fostering critical thinking. What do you say to that?
Well, that is a question that I too have thought about. And as a result of that question, if I were to give you a story relevant to that question, on my return from completing my studies abroad, I encountered some experiences that led me to believe we have a lot of smart and intelligent people in Trinidad and Tobago, but the education system, coming from a system that, and there are many researchers in this area that will talk about ex-colonization of the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and the education system teaches us how to think, right? What to think, I mean, instead of how to think. Now, if you teach someone what to think, when faced with a challenge, they would attempt to apply what they have learned to that challenge instead of having a process or a methodology to solve that problem on their own. So I'm hoping that in developing and presenting this tool, of which I developed a simulated game for, we can begin to start changing the way we educate people in Trinidad and Tobago, and by extension the Caribbean, to think differently. And this 3-part mini-series, you would hear the speakers address how we're going to think differently in regards to, I would speak to product, service, and system methodology. Dr. Leslie Noel, who will do part 3, would speak to design thinking, and one second, Mrs. Krista would speak to Sanka Singh from the Institute of Critical Thinking would speak to, and her team would speak to people and technology. How do we use these things innovatively?
Now, just before we start to speak about the game, I want to ask about you spoke about the education system. What is it specifically about the education system? I know some people have spoken to the level of assessment that is needed, and some people saying that it's almost as though the first 2 years you encourage people to stand up and to speak, and then after those 2 years of existence, you want people to sit down and be quiet. What is it?
Right.
Something specific, or is it a general something?
My personal view on what is the challenge within the education system is the way in which we learn. So, for example, a program would be structured over a 4-year period, and I'm referring to a university program here. It would be structured over a 4-year period, and within that 4-year period, you would learn specific disciplines. So, in year one, you may learn economics. Year two, you may learn marketing. Year three, you may learn finance. And because we study in a phase and siloed approach, what happens is after the typical student, after they finish or complete a course in a trimester or semester, if you're using the University of West Indies approach semester, you would typically forget what you did um, previously as you move on to the other trimester. But when we face challenges in the real world, DK, um, this is a situation where we have to draw upon all our knowledge in that point in time and use all of our knowledge and experience to overcome that challenge. So the education system, because it has some degree of silo in it and it's focused on passing exams, poses a challenge whereby we need to be focusing on, in my opinion, how do we problem solve? How do we use all that we have learned and problem solve? And it's an approach to education that is referred to as authentic education. And it is something that we hold dear to our hearts in Arthur Global School of Business.
Now, I really appreciate the fact that you are using a game as the jump-off point for this sort of methodology. And actually, Albert Einstein, he speaks to play being the highest form of research. What would you suggest to parents about games and about play and about playing during this time of with the stay-at-home measures, with many people being concerned about the education of their children?
That is an excellent question. You see, we take education too seriously. And when I say we take it too seriously, we have a big stick approach to education. And that big stick approach to education needs to change. It needs to be more fluid. It needs to apply to everyday scenarios. It needs to relate to the individual and where they're at any point in time. So no one must be left out of the education process, in my opinion. And the only way that can be so is if we find ways to capture the interests of the learner. And this is why we speak about the idea of authentic education. So you want to teach your kids science, take them outside. I remember when I was a kid, DK, I went outside with a glass and I attempted to recreate a magnifying glass with a normal piece of broken glass and having the sunlight shine through it. Little experiments around the house. And what you need to do as kids become interested in these things, apply those experiences to theoretical knowledge so that they can grow from the experiences that they are having.
We've had people before speak about using cooking to teach science and measurements, using board games for spelling, literacy and numeracy in terms of adding points or spelling a word. But we're going to speak about the specific game and the methodology that you have devised and how you came up with it when we return from this break. This is Response to COVID-19. Stay with us. Welcome back to Response to COVID-19. We are speaking with Dr. Kevin Michael Fleary. He's the Program Director of Business Development and Innovation at the Arthur Lockjack School of Business. We've been hinting at it. We've been hinting at it, Dr. Fleary. Tell us about this game that you've devised, please.
Right. So my PhD study allowed me to explore different ideas and different approach to management thinking. One such approach is called product service system methodology. Now, this methodology is used and is applied to large organizations, but I thought that it had some value and it could be applied in different ways to different sets of people and different scenarios. So what I did is I used that methodology as the backbone to develop a simulation, and the simulation has different contexts by which people can experience everyday business scenarios. So for example, when we talk about product, a product comes together with a system, and the combination of a product and a system creates a viable business supported by people, technology, and processes. So what will happen in this game is the participant will randomly select a product or a service and support that product or service with a system card, which gives the individual or the participant a business model. That business model then would have challenges to overcome. Because the participant is randomly selecting cards, they don't know at any point in time what business they are going to create, right? They just have component parts. They now have to use their imagination to say, what is my business about based on the cards presented? How am I going to overcome these challenges using the strengths presented on the card? So it creates a constrained environment, and given that constrained environment, the participants have to overcome the challenges, much like what we face in real world when we run businesses with limited time, limited skills, limited technology, and as we're seeing today, limited finance.
I like the enthusiasm I see when you're starting to speak about your research. But speaking of research, though, how many people did you test this over? What was your sample size like?
My sample size was over 139 participants.
Now, in terms of use...
Over a 2.5-year period.
Now, with
right?
that...
And the sample size, what I learned from the research is that people are excited to learn differently. The traditional way of learning, of having a textbook and attending classes and reading notes just to pass an exam, people no longer motivated by that. We still do it, it is still necessary, don't get me wrong, but we need to find alternative ways to educate the people of our country and our region so that we can develop the ability to think critically to solve our own problems, because the solution to our problems will not come from away, it will come from within our own borders.
So within our borders, how can we take that play and make it serious? How can companies increase their service offering, possibly using this methodology that you have devised?
Right, so with that question, I would like to go to the presentation in which I presented to give you an example of how it will work. I'm presenting today the methodology, right? So once you see and understand the methodology, you would understand how to move from product to service and vice versa. And in moving from product to service, we are going to actually be creating different options to innovate within our company that has constraints. So bear with me as I share this presentation.
All right, so we're looking forward to this presentation as we get this shared screen from Dr. Kevin Michael Fleary, who is from the Arthur Lockjack School of Business. Take it away, Dr. Fleary.
Okay, so thank you, Dike. So before I get into the nuts and bolts of the presentation, I would like to just mention a few things, historical underpinnings. As far as a result of colonization, We were taught what to think instead of how to think. We spoke about that earlier. But what are the implications of that? The implications of that is when faced with a problem, our ideas about how to solve that problem are bounded. And it is bounded by time constraints, imperfect information, and our inability to think critically, right? According to the last Innovation and Competitiveness Report, Trinidad and Tobago, as far as innovation is concerned, has been on a steady decline, right? What can we do? And what should we do? Well, we should get creative with thinking creatively, right? So let me introduce this model to you. It's called the product service system methodology. What is it? What it states is that a company can exist on a spectrum, and that spectrum to one extreme is complete or pure product, to the other extreme is complete or pure service. The in between product and service, if we were to start from the product side, we would see, can you see my cursor here?
Yes, it might help if you do full screen though.
Full screen? Okay, hold on. Yeah. Can you see my cursor here?
It's a little better.
We would see pure product. And as we move towards service, we would see product orientation. After which we would see use orientation, then result orientation, then pure service. This spectrum creates different options for a company who is interested in innovating. For example, a company that is in the business of manufacturing something, right, may be limited to manufacture additional quantities of that product, right, because of a number of constraints. That product could instead offer or extend or innovate their product oriented offerings to the market by offering a product related service. A product related service. So what you're doing is we're assuming that the consumer already has a car. If we were to use the car as the product, a consumer already has a car, and I'm going to provide to that consumer a product related service that could add value to their car, right? Maybe a steering wheel holder, some car seats, product related things. Then as we move more to the right of the screen, we can go to use orientation. What does use orientation imply? The consumer is no longer interested in owning the physical product. They are limited, as well as the company is limited. The company is limited to manufacture and the consumer is limited to purchase. But the consumer wants to use the car. Therefore, we have different options whereby this manufacturer, and we are seeing it today, different manufacturers are offering ways that people could use and share vehicles without owning it. It's called Uber, for example. Then we have results oriented, right? Results oriented. So results oriented is I'm only interested in getting the value out of this without actually being physically involved, right? Without actually being physically involved. So at this stage of the process, what can happen is that you can take Uber to another level and have a chauffeur service that is luxurious, for example. What you choose to do in this spectrum, is limited by your imagination and ability to be aware of what the market wants at any point in time, right? Let me go to this diagram. Right. So what I would like to highlight here as a working example is a washing machine. So the washing machine is the pure product. The product oriented, think of that as a physical add-on, right? Use oriented, think of that as do it yourself. Result oriented, think of that as I'm only interested in the outcome. Pure service, I only want to get the service and I'm not interested in owning the asset, right? So Dike,
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, let me have you jump in here to see if we both communicating this thing in the right way.
Okay,
So if I
now we have about 3 minutes, but and one of the things, two things I want to ask about in terms of increasing product offering, in terms of increasing service offering. But before I even do that, because of the constraints of time, I want to know what
yes,
are some of the factors that would go into having a company pivot and actually start to take up uh, take up a business model or an innovation in their business model.
right. Constraints is the main thing. Constraint of time, constraint of human resource, constraints of technology, constraint of process, constraints of money, right? But we have to find ways to increase our bottom line, to grow the revenue of the company. We can grow the revenue of the company by using our competence. Our competence may be in manufacturing, but we understand the product that we manufacture so well that we can offer extensions of that service offering to the public, right? So we can innovate along a product line, or we could innovate along a service line and still use our competence, but not be limited by the constraints of the company.
Now, as we ask you to come back onto the camera, I want to know how close does an innovation need to be to management? Because depending on where the innovation or the suggestion for innovation comes from, it can be taken up on board or it might just be thrown by the wayside.
Right. So what I suggest and why I showed that final table there is I recommend everyone create that table, create the spectrum. And what I would like you to do is don't think about actually creating an innovation that is innovation that is going to make you a millionaire overnight. That is not the objective here. The objective here is to begin the process of thinking critically and have a tool to think critically. The only way we can do that is if we practice. As they say, practice makes perfect. So what I want you guys to do, what I want the viewers to do, develop this table, have many rows, and write pure products, pure service, and populate different options of ideas that you can come up with that can help the company innovate towards a product or towards a service. Some of it may not make sense, and that is fine in the first instance. But over time, what will happen is that you're going to have a catalog of innovative ideas that you can explore. The selection of the innovative idea that you would like to personally explore as a company will help you to shape your new business model as you diversify your product and service portfolio. You with me?
Yes, so far. But I will say, even though I'm with you right now, we are basically out of time. So once again, I want you to promote the other individuals who will be coming on the Wednesdays, and also
Right.
how can people get information about this and more about the Arthur Lockjack School of Business.
Right. So the Arthur Jack School of Business is a Facebook page. You can log on to the Facebook page. You can you can go onto the website, contact the school with any concerns. I can be contacted via the school or via email. Let me share my screen to show you my email. Share, as well as the other speakers, we're going to have the Institute. This is my email here where I can be contacted. We're going to have on day 2 next week.
Can you read that out?
Wednesday,
Can you read it out, please, Dr. Fleary? Can you read out that email, please?
That is k.fleary. Fleary is spelled Fleary at lockjackgsb.edu.tt.
All right, so we want to thank you so much, Dr. Kevin Michael Fleary. And this is just the first in 3, this mini-series of 3 parts. And this has been Responding to COVID-19 on TTT, Chalk City 91.1 FM, and TTT Live Online on Facebook. I'm Dike Rostant. Thank you for tuning in.